It is Christmas Eve 2021, and I don't need to tell you, because of COVID, the last 2 years for everybody has been, well, hell and stuff. But my mouth is dry today. It's because this time of year is very awkward for me. I spent one Christmas season in a homeless shelter, which is kind of what this video is all about. The stigmatism attached to people who are homeless. So before, in about mid 1990, I was working at an Air Force base. I was a federal government employee, had a really good job. And then we learned that the base, Norton Air Force Base, was closing down. Because, of course, I just bought a house and closed on it. And we were told that our jobs would be transferred. Now, I want you to keep in mind, my daughter was born in 1989. So she was barely about a year old. And I had the two boys, a single parent. So I fought and worked hard and bought a house in Redlands, California, near San Bernardino. And all of a sudden, my job is non-existent. And we were told that we would be given another job at another military base somewhere. And I was like, holy shit. And as if that wasn't hard enough, I talked to my family now. A lot of my family was in Cleveland, Ohio, okay? And by this time, I was kind of homesick. I wanted to go home. I wanted to be with my family and stuff. And my Aunt Olga had just become widowed. So the whole premise is that my son Robbie was going to go live with his dad, and the two younger kids were going to come with me. And we were going to go to Cleveland and get a brand new start. It was a new start, okay? It was the start of hell. So I literally sold my house to the neighbor. The neighbor, I quitclaimed the house over to him and he refinanced it. Thank God for that. And, he gave me some money, some traveling money. And here I was in this old beat up station wagon with a U-Haul on the back. I mean, this thing got about 6 miles to the gallon. Maybe 10. I'm not kidding. Anyway, we drove cross country. And when I arrived in Cleveland, and I had a child in diapers, I literally had $16 in my pocket. That was it. I was getting no child support from daddies. Nope. And of course, what I did with my federal government job is I went into leave without pay status, and I still technically had a job. I was still a federal government employee. It's really complicated. But I was still in the system because I knew Cleveland had a lot of federal jobs. So the whole idea was to go from San Bernardino to Cleveland and just transfer it didn't work out that way. Anyway, we get to Aunt Olga's house, and Aunt Olga had never lived with kids. But she was all, yes, we are going to do this. We are going to make this work. My mother gets involved, my evil mother. And we have been with Aunt Olga about 2 weeks. Now, I had already had my resume printed out. I was thinking ahead. My resume was already printed out and ready to go. I was going to hit the ground running, and I was going to go up there and get continue my federal government work. And it didn't work out that way. For a solid 5 work days, I was at that point in time, it wasn't computerized that you applied online. Everything had to be in person. And there I was in downtown Cleveland, handing out my resumes. No, we're not hiring, not hiring, not hiring, not hiring. Well, shit. Well, the 90 days came and gone. So now technically I had to resign my position, and I wasn't a federal government employee anymore. And, that was okay. I was going to find work. Well, my cousin Nancy, God bless her, found me a job at a publishing company as a secretary. Now, I was more than qualified. And when I interviewed, the guy said, yes, start Monday kind of a thing. But I got ahead of myself here. My bitch of a mother tells Aunt Olga, kick her out of the house. Get her out of there. And I want her to send me the kids. My mother wanted to steal my children. No. The whole idea was to push me into a corner. And Aunt Olga was very vulnerable. She loved my mother. And she did. Olga kicked me out. So here I was 2 weeks into Cleveland. 2 weeks into Cleveland. Couldn't find work right away. Couldn't get any money from welfare or any other agency to help me out. And here I am, a mom with 2 kids, couldn't find shit. A local church gave my children toys. Well, what good was that? We didn't have a home to put them in. Big deal. You want to help me? I need a home. And we wound up in the Salvation Army. Women's homeless shelter in Cleveland. Now, this was, at the time, in downtown Cleveland, near downtown Cleveland. So a lot of skeevy people. So here I am in this homeless shelter with my children. And it was like a military dormitory. So I thought, okay, I can endure this. I can endure this. Here's the kicker with staying at the homeless shelter. During the day, now it's winter in Cleveland. We just moved from Southern California. We had no winter clothes. I finally found some. The shelter had some coats, some boots and stuff. So we didn't have a whole lot of winter clothing. You were not allowed to stay at the shelter. You have to leave the shelter during the day for at least 4 to 5 days. 4 to 5 hours during the day. You had to be applying for welfare or looking for housing or looking for jobs. You had to be now they gave you bus tickets. Now, I had a car, but I had no money for gas. And so I would take these bus tickets and would get an all-day pass, and the kids and I would drive around. And it's Christmas time, and in Cleveland, it's so pretty at Christmas. It was just, Tower City was just amazing. It was beautiful and stuff. And we would have to take the bus back to the shelter because I had no money for food to get lunch at the shelter. And then they made us leave again and go back out and look. And I remember sitting in the welfare office for over 4 hours. Now, this was in the afternoon, and they were getting ready to close, and I'm waiting to see a caseworker to help me. And she goes, "Oh, we're closing now. You have to leave." Well, I'm running out of time at the shelter. I'm running out of resources and everything. And I lost my mind. Big woman. And I remember sitting with us was a young man who was called in and got benefits. But here I am, a homeless woman with a military veteran with children, and this woman had the nerve to tell me I was not eligible to get benefits. And I lost my mind. She told me that because I had just moved here, even though everything that happened to make me homeless was beyond my control. The people who said they were going to help me didn't. Instead, they kicked me and my children out in the street. And I get into an argument with her, and it's closing time. She's getting ready to leave. I go, "I'm not leaving here." She calls security. This big black security guard comes over and he goes, "Come on, man, let's go." I go, "No, she promised me I was going to get help." She gave me food stamps. Okay, better than nothing. What I was looking for was a housing voucher. I had already, through a veterans organization that I found, they were going to get me a little apartment. And I just needed the housing voucher. I didn't need food stamps. I had no place to put food. I needed a housing voucher. What the fuck? I took the food stamps, and at least we had money for food. I explained to the landlord what happened. He goes, "All right, just pay me when you can." The place was loaded with roaches. My daughter later on would get lead poisoning from that place, but it was better than being in the shelter. Not by much. So the Veterans Organization had gathered, we moved into this little apartment. And we, of course, we had nothing to start with, and Olga got us dishes and things like that, and I had no refrigerator. But my cousin helped me to find a job. Now I'm jumping back and forth because all of this was kind of happening at the same time. So it does get really confusing. And I moved into my little apartment that had no refrigerator, lots of roaches. And thank goodness it was wintertime and I could only buy milk in the smallest little containers. And literally open up a window and put it outside of a window and hope it didn't freeze, which, you know, for Janessa, because she was still a baby on a bottle. So I start my job, and when I started the job, because I knew I was getting the apartment, I had listed the apartment as my home address. Yeah. And I told no one at work, no one, that I had been. Let me digress a little bit here. While I was in the shelter, apparently my Aunt Olga told some of her friends, and she didn't have many, about what had happened. And apparently one of her friends was compassionate enough to give me a check for $100. And Aunt Olga, I met up with her and she gave me this check. And Olga didn't give me the money, the friend did. Okay. And I went to the bank, where the bank was from, I forget which one. And they at first didn't want to cash it for me. And I had to tell the people at the bank, I am homeless. I am in a homeless shelter. I need diapers. I need gas for my car. Please, I just started a job. Please, cash this check. I need the money. I said, I need to talk to a manager. And I told the manager, I said, I'm sorry. Does this lady have the funds in the bank? Well, yes, she does. Then why can't I cash it? Well, you have a California driver's license. Okay, it's made out to me. I need this money. Finally, they cashed it. It really saved my life in a sense that it gave me some breathing room, if you know what I mean. And during that time too, my son Kenny couldn't go to school. We were like in transit. Kenny could not go to school. So his education fell by the wayside. And the fact that he had a learning disability on top of it didn't help much. So we get into the little apartment. The veterans gave us a bunch of toys to give to the kids for Christmas. And it was actually, for them, pretty good. They actually gave us a Christmas tree too, an artificial Christmas tree. And I just remember sitting there crying. Because it was something I couldn't do for my children. I couldn't be Santa for them. But I had to suck it up and go, okay, that's all right. At least they had something and everything. Different family members brought me foods, which was nice. I appreciated it, all of it. I really did. So then, in the meantime, I start working at the publishing company and was secretary, and my boss just loved my work, because I'm well organized and I was more than damn qualified for this job. And maybe 6 months later, I was talking to this elderly, older woman who worked there, nosy little woman, and I had let it slip that I had been homeless. And we were eating lunch together, so, while we're eating lunch, and she turns to me and she goes, "You were homeless? You were in a homeless shelter?" And I explained that I was transitioning from the shelter to my new apartment, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Everything was on the up and up. Okay. A couple hours later, I'm being called in on the carpet by the boss. His name was Jack. He said, "Close the door." I went, "Okay, shit." Now, I had forgotten I had told her. He goes, "Why did you lie to me?" And I looked at him and I went, "About what?" He goes, "You lied to me about where you lived when I hired you." I go, "No, I didn't. Technically I was transitioning and it was only a matter of a few days. It wasn't that big of a deal." He goes, "Why didn't you tell me you were homeless?" And I could feel the embarrassment and the anger. Number one, because she betrayed me. She had to go running to him all of a sudden. And I could just feel myself turning red and angry. I said, "I didn't lie to you. Yes, I had been in the homeless shelter, but then I had an apartment. It was overlapping." And I looked at him and I said, "Would you have hired me if you knew I was homeless?" He goes, "No, I don't hire street people." I'm a military veteran with more than enough qualifications for this piddly ass secretarial job. And he goes, "I'm going to see what I can do about getting you fired because you lied on your application." What? I left that room so hurt and so angry, so betrayed that through no fault of my own, I had been homeless with my children at Christmas, living in a shelter. And I'm being chastised to it, even though I had all this 6 months or whatever the period was, that I had already been working there, improving myself, and doing very well. He had awarded me like attaboys and good jobs and all that kind of stuff. But because I had been homeless, he didn't want to get around to the other publishers, the other magazines in the publishing office, that he hired a homeless woman. It was an embarrassment. But he didn't know about it. I didn't tell him. It was none of his fucking business. HR said, "You can't fire her. She technically didn't lie to you." In the meantime, he worked with HR from that point forward to transfer me out. He didn't want to see me. The stigmatism of being homeless, like I was a supposed drug addict. Of course, I'm not. Never was, never will be. It was horrifying how human beings treated other human beings for circumstances beyond their control. Horrible. Horrible. And I remember, through the gist of all this lady that gave me the $100, she had died before I had a chance to see her. Even though I wrote her a thank you note, she had died. Because I wanted to thank her in person. Because to me, she believed in me. And that meant the world. It wasn't even the money, it was that she believed in me. And anyway, to this day, this is a very tough time of year. From like the end of October to now, I'm just gritting my teeth to get through Christmas. Never judge a person. You don't know. You haven't walked a mile in their shoes. Never judge them. And for my own mother, to tell my Aunt Olga to kick me out on the street with my children because she wanted to try to take my kids away from me. She wanted to punish me because she was a rotten mother when my brother and I were growing up. It didn't work, Mom. I prevailed because within 2 years, within 2 years of me being homeless, I stayed with the publishing company. I did go on to get another federal government job, because I had put in my applications and they were starting to call us in. So I was able to get back in with the federal government. Things were looking better. We had moved into a nicer apartment. But within 2 years of us being in the shelter, I bought a house. So to the people who helped me, thank you. To the people, the hateful people, my mother included, who tried to ruin me. Got it? You don't deserve me. You don't deserve my children. And to my children especially. Even though it was beyond my control, I am so sorry for what we went through. And I love you all.